We've been covering the Ninth Circuit En Banc decision to take Duncan versus Bonta en banc directly from Judge Benitez in something that looks highly unusual. We've talked about how this en banc panel of 11 judges out of the 30 some odd judges that sit on the Ninth Circuit is equally unusual under the circumstances. I've uncovered even crazier information in the last couple of days. I've been researching some additional information involving the Ninth Circuit that will make you shake your head even more with what this 11-judge en banc panel in the Ninth Circuit did with the Duncan versus Bonta case arising out of the decision by Judge Benitez finding that the magazine ban in California is unconstitutional under the Second Amendment. Stay tuned. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of The Four Box, a diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and author of First They Came for the Gun Owners. Make sure you check it out. Okay, folks, so we've been covering this story about how the 11-judge panel, an en banc panel, which, as you know, as I've said before, en banc panels across the country in courts of appeals are all judges, but in the Ninth Circuit, because it's so big, they have over 30 judges in the Ninth Circuit. En banc panels are 11 judges. As to how they're selected, there's some debate about this, but it's supposed to be random, but we're not going to get into that in this video because there's something else I want to flag that I think may raise even additional eyebrows as to what happened here. Specifically, just to jog your memory about what happened, and then I'm going to explain to you why what happened is extra unusual when you look at the rules of the Ninth Circuit specifically. Just to jog your memory, Judge Roger Benitez, a federal district court judge in California who's a trial judge, a federal trial judge, he concluded that California's ban on magazines that hold more than 10 rounds is unconstitutional. He wrote a 72-page opinion, which was overall excellent. Only one or two minor mistakes, but nothing that was a case dispositive in this instance. So great job by Judge Benitez. He gave California 10 days to take an emergency appeal. We're going to talk about that in 1 second. An emergency motion seeking to basically stay the effect of Judge Benitez's order. Because Judge Benitez's order says, you can't enforce this law anymore, California, but I'm giving you 10 days to go to the higher court to see if they want to stay my order against California. So California filed an emergency motion to stay, which means to freeze the effect of the order of Judge Benitez. What happened is weird, though. What was supposed to happen is this. I went to the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit's general orders dated June 21st, 2023. This is just a couple months old. These are the rules that govern the procedure and process for handling different aspects and different cases in the Ninth Circuit. All right? Why am I telling you this? So what I did was I read the rules, okay? And let me tell you what section 6.4a dealing with emergency motions talks about. So in the Ninth Circuit rules, this is not me, this is not the Supreme Court, this is the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals rules themselves. Section 6.4 deals with emergency motions. An emergency motion is exactly what California sought. They sought an emergency motion to stay Judge Benitez's ruling in favor of the Second Amendment. So now we're in the right section of the rules, 6.4 emergency motions. What is 6.4a? 6.4a talks about assignment to judges, i.e., which judges are going to hear the emergency motion. All right? Here's what it says. Upon the receipt or filing of an emergency motion, the clerk will notify the merits panel assigned to the case. There is no merits panel assigned to the case in this case right now. Or in an unassigned case, will notify the motion's attorneys. If the motion arises in a potential comeback case, the motion's attorneys will contact the previous panel to inquire whether they wish to consider the motion, which is what happened here. They claimed that the En Banc panel was a potential comeback case and that they should take a look at it. But here's what's interesting. If you continue on down the rule, let me tell you what the Ninth Circuit rule says and tell me if this sounds weird to you. Quote, presumptively, the current motions panel will decide all emergency motions in which a response is filed within the sitting month. Oh, what's this? Presumptively, which means unless something weird occurs, presumptively the current motions panel will decide all emergency motions in which a response is filed within the sitting month. So why does that matter? Because if you also look at 6.2 of the rules for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, specifically 6.2a, it talks about, ready, assignment of judges. Assignment of judges. It goes on to say that the court will appoint, or the court shall appoint for each month, 2 panels composed of 3 members of the court to serve on the motions and oral screening calendars. The court shall appoint for each month 2 panels composed of 3 members of the court. Why is that relevant? Here's why it's relevant. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has every month 2 panels of 3 judges, which is 6 judges. And what do? They handle any motions filed to the Court of Appeals, unless, of course, it's in a case where there's already a panel. And in the case of Duncan versus Bonta right now, there's no panel. At least there wasn't at the time the motion was filed here by California. So as we saw in Rule 6.4a, presumptively the current motions panel will decide all emergency motions. That's what it says. And who exactly is that panel that would have overseen Duncan versus Bonta? Well, we know under 6.2a, it's going to be some combination of these 2 panels composed of 3 members of the court. So there's some number, 3 or 6, it's a little unclear from the rules, but 3 or 6 judges are going to be making decisions involving an emergency motion, such as the emergency motion we saw in Duncan versus Bonta. So here's what I'm curious about. There's someone that I'm familiar with, that I've spoken to, who's very familiar with Ninth Circuit practice, says that back in the old days, not that long ago, by the way, the Ninth Circuit would put on their website the names of the judges that served on these monthly motion panels to resolve motions, such as emergency motions of the type we saw in Duncan versus Bonta. But now it turns out that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is not putting on their websites, or putting on its website, the names of the judges that are sitting every month on these emergency motion or these motion panels. So here's the question presented. Why did this 11-judge En Banc panel decide over the objections, the vigorous objections of a couple of their members, to grab onto Duncan versus Bonta to resolve an administrative motion, a motion for a stay, when there's already a process in place in the Ninth Circuit for 3 judges to sit on a panel, and that is their job. They're like on-call doctors, right? Doctors may have to work, 40 hours a week, but sometimes they're on call at a hospital. They may have to work weekends on call, and then that rotates. The same idea involves these motion panels for the Ninth Circuit. They rotate, presumably, every month. Another group of 3, 4, 5, or 6 judges, depending on the month, will stand or sit and preside over any of these emergency motions. So the question is, who sat on that motion panel that would have heard the Duncan versus Bonta emergency motion from California if the Ninth Circuit En Banc panel did not step in? But we can't find the answer out by looking at the Ninth Circuit website, because the Ninth Circuit website does not give us the names right now. It used to apparently, but no more for some reason. Give us the names of those judges that sit on those emergency motion panels. But there may be a way to find out who they were. You see, someone out there in California, I'm not a California lawyer, but someone out there in California probably is able to track all the orders signed in the month of, let's say, September 2023, all the various orders signed involving emergency motions or other motions, and probably can piece together after the fact who exactly were the judges sitting on the emergency 3-judge panels during the month of September 2023. Because some orders were presumably signed by these judges that sat on these panels. So that's the key question. Are the judges that are sitting or were sitting in September 2023 in this motion panels that handled any emergency appeal or any emergency motions or any urgent motions, were the judges that were assigned for this month of September 2023, do they have a record, or did they have a record of being sort of more pro-Second Amendment and respective of the Bill of Rights than the 11-judge panel that's the En Banc panel that ripped the Duncan versus Bonta case away from the judges, the panel of judges that were there for the month of September. Because we already know that the 11-judge En Banc panel is terrible on the Second Amendment. And why do we know that? Because they're the ones that screwed up Heller and Duncan versus Bonta the first time so badly that the Supreme Court granted cert, vacated their decision, and sent it back down to do it again. So we know the 11-judge En Banc panel is bad for the Second Amendment because they're the ones that screwed it up the first time, and they're the ones that the Supreme Court admonished the first time. And guess what? They reached out and they grabbed it from a 3-judge emergency panel of judges. I want to know who are those 3 judges, who were those 3, 4, 5, or 6 judges on that monthly panel, and I want to see whether or not they have a reputation or a record of being more sympathetic to following the law, following the Bill of Rights, and following the Second Amendment than we know the terrible judges on the 11-judge En Banc panel. Of course, there's a few exceptions there. They wrote dissents. So this is a very interesting. So we're going to watch carefully who exactly who were the judges on this panel in September, and we're going to try to figure this out by looking at the orders signed by the Ninth Circuit, by this emergency panel of judges, to see if we can identify who they were, and then we're going to try to figure out what their records are involving the Second Amendment. That will be quite telling if it turns out they are quote-unquote conservatives or quote-unquote good on the Second Amendment. That will really add further evidence that what the 11-judge En Banc panel did here by taking it away from a decision of this 3-judge panel is significant, because this 3-judge panel, if it turns out they're sympathetic to the Second Amendment, probably the 11-judge En Banc panel that screwed up the Second Amendment before probably feared that the 3-judge emergency judge panel that it should have gone to would rule against California and would have let the magazine ban expire, or I should say be enjoined by the Judge Benitez ruling. So to make sure that 3-judge administrative stay panel that was supposed to hear this case, to prevent them from being able to rule in favor of Judge Benitez and the Second Amendment plaintiffs against California and allow the magazine ban to basically not be enforced for a period of who knows, well, a year or more. Instead, this En Banc panel of 11 judges, overwhelmingly the majority of them are anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment. We know that from the record. That's why they may have taken it away from this 3-judge emergency panel or monthly panel that's supposed to handle all the motions in a given month. So anyway, we're going to continue to follow the story, and we'll talk more about this as we carry on. And again, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you subscribe, and don't forget to follow us on X at 4 Boxes Diner, and we'll see you again soon here at the 4 Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.